Hey everyone, I'm Marcus.
And I'm Charlie, and this is the Mood Booster Podcast.
In this podcast, Charlie and I come together to discuss everything we go through in our lives. The highs, the lows, but importantly, everything in between. Just trying to find the joy in every day.
Exactly that. We're not here to preach, just here to connect, reflect, and hopefully give you guys a little bit of a lift wherever you are.
Yeah. You can expect stories that spark something, science that makes sense, and just a conversation between two friends that feels like you're catching up with an old companion after a long time away.
This episode is on the news, isn't it?
It is indeed. We obviously there's a lot going on in the world at the moment, and we just thought now was a good time to reflect on what the news, what it looks like, but actually how news in general can impact our well-being, not only in a negative way, but also the positives of the news and things like activism as well.
Yeah, we go into a little bit about how we also set some boundaries with that, what our consumption of the news looks like, and really just how we handle it. Yeah, it's a fantastic episode. Hopefully you guys love it. Let's boost some moods and let's go.
Let's do it. Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to the Mood Booster Podcast, everyone.
Hello, episode 15.
Wow,
Or if you speak the lingo, episode 15.
Episode 15. Wow. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, you. Welcome back. It's good to see you. It's good to hear from you.
It is.
How have you been?
Pleasure to have you here.
Welcome.
Especially you.
Especially you.
You.
Episode 15, we are reflecting on the news today, aren't we?
We're reflecting on the news.
We are indeed.
There's just a lot going on at the moment.
There is.
To name a few, but a few.
To name a few
World War
things.
III breaking out.
It's been happening for a while now.
Trans rights being stripped here, there and everywhere.
Yeah.
Donald Trump being
D-Trump.
the worst person on the planet. Just three of many. So yeah, we think it's a good time more than ever to discuss the news, the impact it has on our well-being, for the sake of balance always, not just the negative impact of news, but how the news is also helpful and why it's important to stay informed. But yeah, just giving a bit of, let's stick with it, holding a bit of space for. Holding space.
Oh yeah, there you go.
There we go. Holding a bit of space for staying informed and what the news means and how we consume it ourselves, what we think about it.
Yeah, how sort of boundaried we are with the news. I know we have some not different opinions, but our thoughts on how to consume the news as well. With everything that's going on, as I've heard from other people as well, it's very easy to hear it and let it get to you in quite a big way and affect your mental well-being. Of course, it's important to be educated, but it's also what we want to come on here and talk about is just to really try and dive into what we think on how to consume it, how to let it affect you versus how to be quite boundary with it. So
yeah,
it's going to be quite an interesting episode.
It is indeed.
I'm looking forward to it.
It is indeed.
The news.
Have you been someone your whole life who's kept up with the news regularly?
Far from it. I, in my recent years, have been more educated in the news than I've ever been. I used to be someone, when I was younger, who just rejected all sort of modern news. I'd be very much of the opinion.
Classic you,
it's fitting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd be very much of the opinion. This was a while ago now. Very much of the opinion that.
Were you of the opinion?
Well, I wasn't actually able to speak because you were interrupting me there. So.
Sorry, say it again.
I said it twice, didn't I?
3 times.
Did I actually?
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I'm of the opinion that, or used to be, that all news was just noise. Not now. I've differed. This absolute chump over. He's having a bit of a laugh with me. It's not a bit funny.
You're of the opinion, but used to be.
I used to be of the opinion when I was younger.
Thank you.
Yeah. I used to be of the opinion. I don't even know what I was going to say anymore. You just throw me. You throw me so far off my route. Oh yeah, I used to be of the opinion back when I was younger that I didn't really care about the news. I just saw it as noise. All I was doing was me, and that was it.
You do you, Boot.
It's quite self-centered. As I've grown up, I've very much become more aware of my community, issues that I care about, and I want to be more involved in those as well.
Good.
How much I receive the news now still, I think, differs from a lot of people who have things like alerts or notifications on from BBC News, instantly notified when they wake up of those sorts of things. But I think we can go a little bit more into how we handle the news, how we take it on, what our boundaries are with it as well, just to see how it affects us as well.
Yeah.
What about you?
I
Have
agree.
you always been someone that's kept up with the news?
No, I haven't. When I was younger, I definitely didn't. I think for me, what did it shift? I've always been someone who's been aware of what's going on for sure, and like even I remember in 2016 with the American election when Trump first rose to power, um, I was even writing blogs on it for my one of my psychology modules
Were
about the
you?
election and things.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm not someone who's massively married to or wed to the news and reads the newspaper or reads the news on my phone every single day or has
Oh.
the app. I do have the news apps,
Yeah.
and at one stage I did have the headline notifications on, but which we'll go into later on in the episode. But for several reasons, I just turned those notifications off.
Mm.
But I very much am aware of things going on. Definitely, I always feel like I could be more aware, but that's another thing we'll speak about.
Yeah.
Firstly, though,
Firstly,
how's your week?
my week, it was a mix. It was a roller coaster of a week, I'll tell you that. So, how was my week? Yeah, ups and downs, really. Started off on the Thursday since we last recorded. Unfortunately, it was my nana's funeral, so that was quite a sad day. A couple of days actually. Lovely to be with my family. I've not seen all my cousins from all my family in since 2018, so what, a good 7 years now altogether. It was unfortunate that under these circumstances we got brought with each other again like this. However, it was a lovely reunion to see everyone, to laugh again, to see how everyone's changed. That was beautiful. So although it was sad, it was quite bittersweet, I would say, which was lovely. And then on Friday we were at a stag do, so straight from down there to up here. So that was a bit of a wild roller coaster. That was a 3-day stag do at the Isle of Wight Festival down at the south coast of England, wasn't it?
It was.
Absolutely phenomenal. Very tiring weekend, but God, it was fun, wasn't it?
It was
It was a
fun.
great weekend. I was so just for a bit of context, it was one of your friend Jay's. It was his stag do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite new into the friendship group. I've only met Jay back at New Year's, so known him for 5-6 months now. So I'm quite new into the friendship group. Although everyone is lovely. I've very much been adopted as not the younger Jay, but like your friend, but also very much adopted into the group as well,
Yeah.
which has been lovely. So I think from everyone just being quite welcoming and there being a few pints as well, I think it went really, really smoothly.
Yeah.
It was a lovely weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. You've known each other for a short period of time, but Jay loves you a
Jay's
lot.
great.
He's extremely fond of you.
On New Year's Eve, when I had met him, I think it was after 4 hours I had known him, he invited me to his stag do. He was like, "Oh, you know what? Come along. It's fine. It's fine. Just buy a ticket and come to the stag do. It's absolutely fine." Known him for 4 hours, and I think a week later I'd bought a ticket.
Yeah.
Why not? Loads of fun.
Why
Take the
not?
new opportunity. So
Why
we saw a lot
not?
of cool acts, didn't we? There was Sting, who was
Yeah.
one of my people who I was looking forward to most. There was the Script, Stereophonics.
Yeah.
Who else did we have?
Pale Waves.
Pale Waves.
Ollie
They were great.
Murs.
Ollie Murs.
I saw the Cause.
You did.
Who else?
We missed Busted.
Oh God, don't get me
Unfortunately,
started.
I was very annoyed about that.
Don't get me started.
I've been to the
Year
year 3000.
3000. Not much has changed, but they lived underwater. And your great granddaughter is pretty fine.
I'm tone deaf, anyone who's
Pretty
listening.
fine. You can sing.
Oh, I cannot sing.
So yes, if you're asking me,
How was your week, Marcus?
Jay Jay is one of my best friends, and
Oh, that's
I'm
lovely.
actually one of his best men at the wedding, which
Oh,
is
that's
really
lovely.
exciting. So yeah, I have a lot of love in the park for Jay.
You do. A lot of love around the park.
Dear friend of mine, as is Lucy. They both are.
Mm.
Lucy's his fiance. They're each other's fiancés. And
His wife.
yeah, they're just yeah, some of my best friends, and I love them lots. So it was a pleasure to be celebrating Jay and Lucy, but specifically Jay at his stag do, and having fun with it. That's kind of nothing really notable before that, but yeah, we drove down on the Thursday evening, got the ferry over to Yarmouth. Always a fun excursion, doing the little ferry and all that sort of stuff. We got the bus. We got off the ferry at
Carnage,
like
wasn't it?
10:30 or something, p.m. and we were just tired. All the buses had stopped. The other white website said there were shuttle buses going till 3 a.m. That was a lie.
They had lied to us. They'd spread
So
some misinformation online.
they'd lied several times. And anyway,
Boycott the Isle of Wight
so we
shuttle
got
bus.
on the number 7 bus just blindly, and turns out we got half an hour into the journey and said, when everyone was getting off, we're like, "Is this for the festival? Because it doesn't look like it." And they were like, "You've gone on the wrong bus in the wrong direction."
Yeah, I
So we
can't
started
believe they
again.
did that.
Anyway, got to Newport, and then the festival itself is kind of, well,
That's the town
it
nearest
was
to
a
the festival.
45-minute walk uphill with all of our stuff into the festival. It was really funny. We
Yeah.
just got a trolley, but it was also funny because everyone was leaving, or a lot of people were leaving very drunk, and just getting great entertainment from us walking in the
You
classic,
just arrived
"You've just
now.
arrived," over and over again, and it was
Yeah.
just hilarious. Yeah, the weekend was fun. The acts were good. My personal favorite was Pale Waves. I think
Yeah.
I liked their music. I thought their music was fun. And well, not, I wouldn't say fun actually. It was, yeah, they were talent. Like
It's good
I
music.
could appreciate
It's good music.
the talent, and I like the music as well. But
Yeah.
we, as the 4 of us who were there watching, were just having the best time.
We were. There was a
And
guy in
just,
front of us, wasn't there, with like the little
oh my God.
spinny thing on. You know those caps which those like young boys in movies which like are licking ice cream have those like spinny things on their caps. The multicolored caps
Propeller
with the a
things.
propeller cap, yeah. There was a kid in front of us in the concert, and we were just going to town on his cap, and he had no idea.
Yeah, it was hilarious. And these 2 women in front of us were just getting great entertainment from us being stupid.
It's funny as all.
So yeah, that was my favourite act, I would say, even though, sorry, Ollie Murs, we go way back. I saw him live at the O2 in like 2010 or something. No, whenever, anyway.
How could you do that to him?
He was good. He's a great entertainer. He's got the charisma on the stage. One
Isle of
thing I will say
Wight.
about Ollie Murs, if you've ever seen Ollie Murs, you'll know one thing about him is he loves his hips. Those hips do not stop moving.
They did not, did they?
It's like, Ollie Murs, there's children in this crowd
He's just like
gyrating.
dropping on like a mic pole. It's great fun to watch, but
Them hips don't lie. He loves his hips.
yeah,
And yeah, so the script were also really good.
they were fantastic.
Yeah, they were very, very, very good.
That was at the point of the night when we had a fair bit to drink as well, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
we
So we
had.
were
Everyone, it was kind of like the last
Everyone's
hurrah
together. It
evening.
was
Everyone
fun
was
as
lifting Jay
well.
up. He was just there, sort of being lifted up, but also not doing anything to support the lift, and was just, he's like, "If you're lifting me up, you're doing the whole thing." So
He flopped
his core was
hard.
not engaged whatsoever, and everyone was having to lift every part of him and hold his head up because he was just doing
He
absolutely
was there just
nothing.
flopping on everyone.
It was quite
Hilarious
funny.
though.
Yeah, so that was
That was a
fun.
Saturday night, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I, in full transparency, did struggle a little bit at times.
Mm.
Just yeah, I have just, how do I say this? Just struggle a little bit with like feelings of inadequacy when it comes to um like guys collectively.
Mm.
And I feel like this is something that people feel but don't speak about, and everyone kind of just braves it or puts on a front, or not a front, but everyone just goes through the waves or the performance and just gets through it. But for me, I really struggle with that sort of hyper bro energy.
Chopping pints. The
But yeah, I'm fine with chopping a pint. I'm
mm.
fine with all those things. It's just intense jokes and all those things, which I think I tell myself I'm bad at, so then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, when actually the second day, this was the first day I was just struggling a little bit. The second day was very much not center of the group, but heavily involved in the group, just as everyone else was, just having a great
You're having a
time.
fantastic time, yeah.
Being the comedian, the natural born comedian I am, and everyone was appreciating me and my comedy, and
Yeah.
vice versa. But yeah, it took me a moment to sort of drop. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was just all me needing to drop something. Yeah, I think it's a balance, and I don't want to completely blame myself and just say it's
Mm.
all on me. I think there are some energies that maybe I just don't, and I will
You don't gel with.
potentially never gel with, in terms of whether it's the types of jokes or whatever. But it's not to say, we had an amazing time and everyone
Mm.
there was bloody lovely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just something I kind of got in my head about and struggled a little bit with. And I only raised that to say, I think, well, because I'm always honest and want to be honest about experiences, but also I know for sure that a lot of males have that similar experience or feeling, but kind of just brave through it all,
Yeah.
put on a uh, overperform or whatever to try and compensate for those
Yeah.
feelings of feeling like, oh, everyone else is this, that, and the third, and masculine and whatever. Well, actually, that what is being,
What are you trying to do here?
yeah, what
Yeah.
is trying to be a guy, or and probably similar for the female experience. Like, what are all of these concepts that we're putting on ourselves, and I'm putting on myself in this
Yeah.
situation? Everyone's just here trying to have a nice
The
time.
idea of a stag do is inherently rooted in traditional masculinity, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like bunch of guys. I mean, at least a traditional stag do is
Mm.
from where it comes from. It's marriage,
Well,
wedding.
it's a
All
gendered
the guys
thing.
go off and
Yeah.
they, it is a gendered thing. They go off and typically get very, very drunk. That is a traditional stag do.
Mm.
So it's rooted in in those values. So it's not surprising to hear that if you don't necessarily align completely with traditional values, then you don't feel quite at home. That's
Yeah.
completely fine as well. I remember I do recall saying to you, I'm not sure how much you want to talk about as well, but I remember saying, even though you're partaking in this and showing face and still enjoying it, those sorts of things don't define you as well. You don't have to sit there and like agree with them. And this isn't me saying just have a good time, but knowing those things, whilst you don't necessarily agree with them, they also don't define you as well.
Mm.
Because I also noticed, as you just said, there was a big shift in how much you were able to enjoy it and be present from the first day to the second day as well.
Mm.
Um, was there was there something there that switched for you?
No, well, yeah, I think it was just a lot of, I don't know, I also am someone who, regardless of these sorts of thoughts, I can just get a bit socially anxious and in my own head, and then become quite rigid and just can't relax in a social situation sometimes. And that's what was also slightly worrying about the festival, because there's not really an escape. Whereas sometimes when that happens to me, I can just sort of be like, okay, I'm going to go home now, or I've got this thing on, so I'm going to leave, or whatever.
Yeah,
Whereas you're all there. Also, it's my best mate stag do, so I want to show face.
of course.
You're all sort of in it. There's not really anywhere to go, and if you wanted to sort of go to sleep or whatever, because often when I find like I'm getting anxious about things socially, I can just go to bed and it reset and it feels better. I can't do that because everyone's oil wrestling next to my tent, and all these things, and I'm just and kicking whatever, and I'm so like it's not even
Yeah,
just necessarily about the sort of masculinity or that sort of stuff, that side of it. And also, this sounds like I don't align with masculinity and all those things. It's not true at all. And
mm,
or that I don't align with the people that were there. That's also not true at all. Like I say, they were all lovely people.
yeah.
It's just I got in my own head. I got socially anxious. I um just felt a bit sort of overwhelmed by the intense energy that was brought naturally, because it's someone's stag do.
Do you think by
Um,
labeling, this is more of just an open thought, not a statement, but do you think by labeling yourself as someone who, I think you said the phrase there, someone who gets socially anxious or someone who
mm,
doesn't gel, or I can't remember the phrase you used, but you labeled yourself as someone who doesn't do very well in these big settings. That is also the self-fulfilling prophecy that you know slash anticipate and slash label yourself as someone who doesn't do well. Thus, when you feel it coming on, you're like, oh, this was to be expected, and then you sort of feel like you know where it's going.
maybe a little bit, but it's also, having known myself my whole life,
Yeah,
I know that that's how I'm not someone I'm extroverted in many ways, but sort of when it's in a situation that again I can control, or that I know or I'm safe with or
yeah,
whatever. There's also times that I just know that things I'm just not comfortable with. Like, I'm not someone, for example, that loves clubbing, because that's something that I find
yeah.
anxiety inducing. Lots of overstimulation, lots of loud noise, lots of just crowds. I don't really love crowds either.
Mm,
So it's something that I just know that I don't love. So it's not like when I go to the club, I've told myself I don't love it, so then I'm going to get really anxious about it. I just know I don't love it wholly. And it's not, yeah, so I think it's yeah, part of it is a self-fulfilling, and that there is
yeah,
part of it that's like, oh, okay, I already know this about myself. But I think it's also, if you just know that some things you prefer and some things you don't, it's not like I'm telling myself to think that and therefore it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
yeah.
It's kind of just part of who I am, and I sometimes get anxious in those situations. Yes, there's work that I could do to maybe not be so anxious. And like the second day, I really tried to work on, and I spoke to you about sort of, okay, I really want to make sure this is a really good time, that I'm having a good time with Jay, that all of these things. And for whatever reason, it just gelled.
Was there for whatever reason, or was there something specific there that you felt like you were manually doing that worked?
Well, I think we'd spoken quite a fair bit, and I felt
Yeah.
comfortable having had that, being able to sort of air that,
Okay.
and having to, yeah, I'm not sure. But that's the thing. Maybe haven't been introspective enough, or don't know myself well enough in that way, but sometimes I'm able to just relax into it, and sometimes I'm in a panic attack and I can't do. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I can't say for certain why. Sometimes I can relax and have a good time socially, and sometimes I just need space.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Both are completely fine as well.
Yeah, and I don't think all of that is predictable, or you can't control or manipulate all of those things.
None of it makes you, none of that needing space or not gelling or whatever makes you any less masculine or any less valuable as a person either. Just makes you more you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's true.
I know that it's just sometimes when you get in your own head about these things.
Yeah.
But I'm aware that I didn't necessarily want to go into this conversation so deeply about this, because I ultimately had a lovely time, and it sounds here like I'm sitting here moaning about the whole situation. I appreciate you asking the questions for reflection, but I also had a brilliant time.
You said that, yeah, very much so. It was a fantastic weekend. Yeah.
So, and it was just the most, joyful thing seeing Jay have a lovely time with his friends, and me and you and everyone else, and it was an incredible weekend.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe that's an episode that we'll talk about another time, in terms of more generically speaking about, social settings, and how I or we or other people can sometimes gel and bond and not do so, or whatever, and the different variables involved in that.
Yeah.
But for this, had a lovely weekend, had a bit of a struggle, had a bit of a wobble, but had a lovely time.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I was surprised by a group of people who I didn't really know at all. Just very welcoming. Again, I know the whole thing of it was not a intense like get to know people, but it's just have a good time, see some amazing music, and that was lovely as well.
Yeah.
So it was overall a fantastic weekend. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah. Wonderful,
you, Jay.
wonderful weekend. Yeah. So, speaking of,
find it.
Find the link.
Find it. You've got it. You don't have it?
Have you heard when they announced the Isle of Wight lineup for next year?
Was it?
It's pretty big news, wasn't it?
Was it big news? No,
it was big news.
Big news.
Speaking of news,
news. It's pretty bleak at the moment. Let's not lie.
Let's not lie, guys. When is it never bleak? Let's be honest.
God, when we came out of lockdown, from
I think the
COVID-19,
big headlines have always been, I think, speaking here, on the whole, not very positive. I think that's been a trajectory of the news.
Well,
of course, they can't always put out, guys, these amazing things are happening. It's important to stay educated, but I think the news has always been quite typically negative.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think by the nature of updating people, it's always sort of what's important to current affairs, to what's going on geopolitically, and usually the things that are most important are the bad things that have happened.
I think so.
Well, I do know certain news outlets. I know, like BBC, Radio 1. At this point, it's kind of like Newsround, how sort of simplified. CBBC Newsround. That's what it's called. How sort
used
of
to watch it back when I was going to school.
This is a good thing. I sound judgmental in that sense, and I shouldn't have. But it's very sort of simplified, the news, and everything's
very digestible,
very over-explained. But they have an audience of 12-year-olds up to whatever age they have, so it's good that they have.
If you're older than 12 and watching CBBC Newsround, we are sorry. You are valid.
No, the Radio 1 news. Sorry. They're the way that they explain the news is very sort of digestible and very simplified.
What are your main sources of news currently?
But what I was going to say is they do have good. I think they try and do like a feature which is the positive news or the good news or whatever, to make sure that they
Yeah.
aren't just dwelling on the negative things.
Yeah.
So there are certain outlets that do have that, which can be helpful because a
Mm.
lot of people do find, and myself included, sometimes the news just a bit overwhelming or sad or just a bit
Yeah.
bleak, and there is good news happening. I know Greg James does positive news. I can't remember. Anyway, yeah.
Mm.
My main source of news, completely honestly, the News Daddy.
Who?
I don't know his name, but he's the
Yeah.
most followed news account on TikTok, or was,
Oh, nice.
until I think Daily Mail re-overtook him. They've had like a war of who has the
Have
most
they?
followers on
The news
TikTok.
daddy. That's hilarious.
But he has like the biggest following because people are hungry for unbiased, unfiltered,
They
uncensored,
are.
Rupert Murdoch controlling
Yeah.
what's being said news, and he reports sort of factually with credibility and sources, but very quickly and very neutrally. All
Exactly how people are
well,
wanting
I
it.
say very neutrally. He he's quite clearly like against people like Donald Trump and things, which is a bit of an echo chamber for me. But I objectively think that that man has many issues, so I will
Yeah.
support what News Daddy says in that sense. So from there, but I also up until recently had BBC, both BBC and Sky News notifications on my phone, so
Yeah.
I would get all the headlines. I wouldn't necessarily read the details in in great depth unless it was something that really caught my attention, but I would be getting the daily sort of updates on the key things that were happening. Um, when I'm working, I often have Radio 1 on, so we'll also get news from they do the news every hour.
Yeah.
I think quarter past the hour. So
Mm.
those three different ways I get the news.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think through social media, which again we'll go into today, I indirectly get the news from not looking for it, but a lot
Yeah.
of social media is people debating or people complaining about what's going on or people being activists online. So I'm seeing news indirectly through activism and people speaking up and things.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'd say yeah, BBC News is one of the main platforms that I've always used. I've never really had notifications on, just because for myself, I've found that when I used to have them, be the first thing I see when I wake up is
Mm,
this, god awful thing happening somewhere in the world. I've made it more as I've grown up, made it more of a conscious effort to check the news,
mm,
whether it's daily, at least just to know roughly what's happening in the world, just to stay educated and updated. Because I've never liked it when I'm in a conversation about the news and I'm just sat there, just absolutely oblivious, but like, who,
yeah.
what, where,
When?
when,
How?
who, and then people are like, come on, mate, you
Yeah.
should be knowing this. The rest is politics. A podcast speaking about a podcast is funny,
Mm,
but I love. I think they're great. I'm not listening to them in a number of weeks, but I tune in every so often just to sort of get updates on the recent episodes to see what they're speaking about. Because both hosts, quite
Rory Stewart,
Rory
is it?
Stewart and
And
Alistair Campbell,
Alistair Campbell.
very
Yeah.
much people who are on the other sort of sides, the left and right, having worked in both the Labour and the Conservative Party.
They seem to unite a lot more these days than
They do, to
yeah.
be fair, they do. But it's very, very interesting to hear their differences in their work
Yeah.
and how they can come very, it seems unbiasedly together to give quite a good opinion. Now, I am also conscious of having consuming different angles of media and news, whether it's through social media, BBC News app, or podcasts as well. They are opinions from people, or as much as they can be tried and facts, they are other people giving facts as well.
Mm,
I think, as you said, people are very hungry for unbiased news. People want to know what's happening,
mm,
not with a tinge of what people are thinking about it or what
yeah.
they think, because that can always steer the news in a certain way.
Yeah.
I think people just want education on what's happening in the world,
Yeah.
like myself as well.
And yeah, for example, obviously the BBC have to stay neutral and have their
Yeah,
impartiality policies and things,
yeah,
but now more than ever, people are growing extremely tired and complacent and angry with that, with the basic genocide that's going on
yeah.
in Palestine, and
And them not taking a stance.
feeling like
Mm.
our main source of news is not doing anything or saying anything because they have to remain impartial.
Yeah. Eva, one of my colleagues, her sister works at the BBC as a journalist, and she is not allowed to post anything about like any sort of thing. She's allowed to post about Pride, but not about anything else.
Oh,
Any
that's
sort of
good.
opinionated. Yeah, I
They're
don't know
allowed
quite
to
how that
just talk
fits
about
into not
Pride.
posting about
Yeah.
anything which has bias. I'm of course for that.
You
For
can speak
the
about
post about
that
Pride, of course,
human
but
right, but you can't speak about that
yeah,
human
it doesn't
right.
quite line up. That was more what I was saying. It doesn't quite add up. There's no sort of equality. There's no
Yeah.
straight line there.
You can speak about LGBTQ plus people,
But
but
not about
not babies being bombed.
regardless. Yeah, I don't quite get that, but yeah, I think it's overall from what I listen to and consume, it's a bit of the podcast there, a bit of the BBC, but as we mentioned earlier, I've never been someone to have news headlines.
Mm,
I grew up in a house where we always would have the news on first thing at breakfast.
yeah.
Wake up, news
Breakfast.
is on. Breakfast. We'd wake up, news is on the main TV. You walk downstairs, grab a bowl of cereal, and you sit down at the table, and the news is on.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly that there were just a number of times, so many times that I would walk downstairs, and the first thing I'd hear is, "Oh, good morning. God, have you seen what's happening here? Have you seen what's happening there?" I don't think I ever got so in my own head about it that it would freak me out or make me anxious or nervous about the world in general. I think it at a young age made me quite adverse to wanting to know what's happening in the world. So now, when I grew up, I was a little bit more just, I don't want to hear it, turn it off. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I very much transitioned into wanting to be more educated. So in conversations, I can at least know what's happening.
Yeah.
But I think I've always been quite boundaried with being alerted when I don't want to be alerted about what's happening. Not for any reason to like not be uneducated, just because I know that unfiltered, constant news coming towards me when I'm not necessarily wanting it
Yeah.
can actually have quite an adverse effect on my mental well-being, my health, and just overall the trajectory of my day, especially if it's the first thing that I hear when I wake up is this, and that.
A key example of that, which I think a lot of people share, was in the pandemic.
Yes.
I initially turned them on to stay informed and to know what's going on with sort of lockdown rules and if we were coming out of lockdown and things. But then the Sky News every day, same time, this many people have died, this many people have got COVID, and it just became. It was literally. It felt like some dystopian movie. My phone was telling me the death toll in my country, and it was just. I mean, it's not far from. It's not dystopian because
Mm.
it literally happened, and also, I mean, we're seeing. Anyway, yeah, just all of the death happening across the world at the moment with
Yeah.
everything going on, which we can go into, like I already mentioned, the genocide. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think a prime example of that is the notifications that I was getting then.
Yeah.
After a while, I was like, I just stepped back and was like, this is a bit too much, I think. Like, I
Mm.
want to know what's going on with COVID and the updates globally, but also nationally. But every time my phone pings, no, there was that sort of Pavlovian association with, oh, I'm about to see how many people have died because the news noise has just gone off, and it was just a bit jarring.
It can really shape your worldview as well. I think,
Yeah.
especially if it's your main input. I think it's absolutely. I know we have some research to speak about how your input can change your views overall. But if it's your main input is negative, the world's at war, it's terrible. I know we were literally having this conversation on the way to the Isle of Wight. I think you said something along the lines. I know it wasn't quite this severe, but something like the world is doomed or the world is really sick
The
right now.
current state of the world
The current state of the world is sick.
atrocious.
Technically, I know this is easy for me to say, sat in a garden in a quite a peaceful country, but it's the safest the world has ever been right now in terms of the history of the world.
I don't
Statistically,
know
it
how
is.
for much longer that will be the case.
I don't know,
I
but
could
as of right
be
now,
being
if
dramatic.
we're
I don't
looking at
really
the
know, but
history, it is technically the safest the world has ever been. And I know
fascism on the rise.
there are
The
all these
biggest
things happening.
fascist
Yeah,
in the leader of one of the world's most influential, biggest
that is
countries,
terrifying. I will very much give that to you.
who on a daily basis just becoming more and more of a dictator and
Mm,
more of a, if you disagree with, like, all of this going on with people peacefully protesting ICE in California
yeah,
just being absolutely stripped, and all of their,
yeah.
it's just, I don't even know, it's just awful.
It's
And
interesting.
this is only getting worse, and the rise of
Yeah,
fascism seems to be getting worse, and
yeah,
literal genocide happening. All of these things are going on
yeah.
right now, and just are bubbling as we record. bombs now being Iran, America is all going on.
Mm,
Um, it's not to say to your point. Yes, we in England
yeah.
we're lucky at the moment that we're in a peaceful time at the moment, and you know, um, I mean, even what's that party? The Reform Party.
Reform UK.
Sorry, I was about to say UKIP, but that's their previous name.
Yeah.
Basically the English again. I can't think of the words right now.
It's funny. I remember having
um,
this exact same conversation
they're on
back
the
in
rise.
university.
They're on the
I
rise.
remember having this conversation back in university in second or third year with one of my housemates about the Ukraine-Russia war.
Mm,
Literally, we were silly, but we were talking about being conscripted, all this sort of stuff back then. It's happening now again. I'm not saying history repeats itself and there is
does it not?
objectively terrible things happening, but it does a little bit. There's been negative things happening in the world for a long time right now, and I think as people, like myself at least, I know we have a choice to it's a privilege to say, but we have a choice to be quite boundaried with how much we choose to take on versus what issues we choose to care about as well.
Mm, yeah,
I know that's quite a privileged thing to say because
very.
as a white guy in England, I'm statistically quite safe
Yeah,
in terms of the position I'm in, so I'm not being forced to care about these sorts of issues as well.
yeah.
Um,
Because I should imagine if your family member lived in Palestine or
yeah,
you had a sibling who was transgender or something like that, you
exactly.
would
The
say
issues at your
differently.
front door, so
Yeah.
you need to care about
You would
it.
speak differently. And
Yeah,
that's not to say you're a bad person for being detached from it because you have to
yeah.
protect your own well-being. But yeah, I think there's a balance. And on that,
There is a balance.
we have friends who I think potentially take on a bit too much of the news.
I think that's more what I was getting at.
And
Yeah,
it's to no one's fault, and it's not that anyone does it the right or the wrong way, but in
yeah,
my opinion, you know, you can get in your echo chamber of the news and social media and all those things
yeah,
to a point where you are running yourself down and you're saying, I'm extremely anxious and overwhelmed and can't socialize at the moment because the news is just getting me down too much. And I do think a little bit in agreement with you. We have to be able to continue functioning and
yeah,
going on and finding hope, and that's important, such an important thing, which is why Greta Thunberg is so incredible because
yeah,
she's like, if we give up hope, then everything's gone. We have to
yeah,
continue going on and have the hope and all those things. Yeah, if we just sort of become encompassed, not encompassed, sort of just completely embodied by the news and everything that's going on and see it to be
yeah.
complete doom and gloom with no hope, we it's a bit too much.
Yeah.
And we have to look after ourselves as well.
Do you think do you think it's possible? Yeah, do you think it's possible to be completely aware, educated about every issue in the world and still have hope?
Um, well, we have to have hope.
Yeah,
As humans, it's not only an innate drive to have hope, but if we don't have hope, then if we don't have collective hope,
yeah,
then it's kind of what we just give up.
yeah,
We have to be able to hope for a better future, a better
yeah,
time, a better resolve. Because otherwise, yeah, if you don't have hope, and that runs true with the news, with recovery from, let's say, alcoholism or any addiction. With
yeah,
in hope is a big thing in my area in forensic psychology and rehabilitation of offenders. If they don't hope for better for themselves, they will never
yeah.
desist from reoffending, because they don't have
Yeah.
hope to be able to do so, and they don't
It's the
think
same
it's
thing with climate
possible.
change or
Everything.
climate
Well,
scientists. One
exactly.
of the biggest messages, even though the trajectory we're on with the oceans warming, everything that's happening there, one of the main things is we still need to have hope that we
Mm,
can turn it around and that there is possibility to, because if we lose that, it all gets worse. Um, I do think
yeah.
there is a balance there. I know I was saying this to you
Mm,
before that it is about the balance. I do think you can be educated, aware of these issues while still being hopeful as well.
mm,
I think being ignorant to the fact that these things are happening isn't the answer.
yeah.
Shutting them out and being ignorant isn't the answer. Just saying these things aren't happening, I'm not going to listen, put your blinkers on.
For sure. Um,
However, how much you internalize it is up to us as well.
and it's also another thing is the activism of it all.
Of course.
Um, because it took everything on that's going on
Yeah.
in all of these different domains, and I used the same examples again just for the sake of simplicity. But everything going on in America with deporting citizens.
Yeah.
Just one thing, taking away the rights of trans people as another
Yeah.
thing, but then also everything going on in Palestine, everything going on with the oceans and things like bottom trawling. If you're informed on all those things,
Yeah.
you want to be might want to be an activist in every single arena,
Yeah.
and it's kind of you don't have the scope to, and you also don't have the energy or the resolve or the resilience to be able to show up for all of those things all
Yeah.
at the same time, and going to every single one of those marches and to go to everything. How do you do that? So it's, I guess, finding a way of looking after yourself and still staying informed and knowing what's going on, but
Yeah.
not trying to put too much on yourself as one person to fix all of these
I
things.
think it's what's at your front door, I think is more maybe one angle that you can take, whether you've got a sibling who's transgender or whether you've got family who's being oppressed. It's what's at your front door is what
Mm,
you typically are caring about.
yeah.
Whether you're a doctor who needs to strike because of your, wages, or whether you're someone who's involved with ocean and climate and environment, so you go to those marches instead.
Mm,
You can't be an activist for everything. It'll burn you out
yeah.
very quickly. So it's choosing what's at your front door. You can be educated. I think it's important for us to be educated about everything that's happening.
Mm,
Like, for instance, I work with a lot of Americans in my job. Someone literally said to me yesterday, we can't go forward with buying your product because all of our workers have been deported. ICE is going around all of our houses, or all of the houses and all of the laundries, taking away all of our staff and getting rid. And it's the scariest time that we've ever been in. And I remember hearing that, and I just thought, this is something that is so far removed from our existence here. This is a reality. It's important to be educated about it. It's how on your front step is it? Is it enough for you to take a stand
I,
and internalize it and then take action?
and I truly, maybe I need to think about this more, but I don't think that that's a selfish thing, because moving
To
away.
not want to,
Well, no, not wanting to, but being drawn to things that relate to you, and therefore helping and trying to be an activist for things
yeah,
that relate to you. Because again, you can't be an activist for everything. So where do you
um,
start? It's the relatability. And an example of that, which isn't to do with the news, but an observation that I've made through my PhD, is everyone who's doing a PhD or everyone who's got an expertise, the vast majority of those people, I was definitely an exception because my research I didn't have any personal connection to.
yeah,
The vast majority of people in academia or who have done a PhD, from my experience, have some sort of personal lived experience with that thing, which has
really,
motivated them to want to. A colleague of mine doing sibling experiences of having a sibling with an eating disorder, because that's something that she's gone through. Someone
yeah,
else on schizophrenia research, because that's something that she's gone through. Someone else on eating disorder, uh, over exercise, because that's
yeah,
something that they've. All of these people are doing work and research that helps other people, but it stems from a place that it's their personal experience and something that they connect to and that they've related to. And yes, that's not in the realm of news, but it's an observation that I've made that I definitely think links to this in terms of activism. It's
yeah.
I I'm so personally involved in this that I
That I
can
care
relate to, and
enough.
I should do.
Yeah,
That's not to say that, you shouldn't try. I don't have any. I know people who are transgender,
yeah,
but I don't have any personal relatives. I'm not transgender myself. I don't have any like close people in my life who are transgender. It's not to say that I shouldn't empathize and try and speak for, and not for, but speak with and try and help those people. Um,
mm,
but at the same time, I'm not personally,
leading the charge.
yeah. And
Yeah.
again, I guess it's where do you draw that line?
I
Um,
think as long as you're standing up for issues you care about and you're educated about what's happening in the world, I think that's enough. Um, so, like, for a good example, just for myself here,
mm,
my degree in marine conservation, I had that since a young age. Sailing on the Thames is what I grew up doing. I love surfing. Used to do it on the coast of England back when I was at university as well. Since moving to London, been wanting to get more involved with the oceans. Last summer, there was a march for clean water, the largest ever march for clean water. This is a bit of a humble brag, but no, I did go to the protest because I fully believed in it. I went there solo, met some lovely people, but I was there protesting for against these sort of bigger water companies to stop profits and to stop profiting off of these sort of water companies and basically dumping sewage into the Thames and into the oceans as well. Because it's an issue that, whilst I don't live on the coast, I've grown up using the waters of London
yeah.
and England. it's an issue I cared about, so I made a change and I made a stand for it.
Mm.
I'm still educated about what's happening in Palestine with people being deported in the US, whatever issue is happening. Whilst it's not on my front door, whilst it's not on my front step, sorry, I'm not leading a charge for these other
Mm.
campaigns. What I don't think it's not all right to be is ignorant to the fact that it's happening and
Yeah.
just shut it out. Because I think that's when people turn blind eyes to it.
Yeah.
That's when these issues will not be solved. It's through general education of everything is when they will be solved. But then again,
Mm.
it's all about
It
balance. It's a
is.
fine line because not everyone can know everything about
No.
everything. Are we meant to as humans?
And one might argue, well, in
Are
not
we meant
saying
to?
anything, you are complacent and you're allowing
Yeah,
these
it's a
things to
good point.
happen. Um,
It's a very good point.
but again, I don't have an answer here, but what are you and when people say you're not saying anything, they also, I remember people in terms of Black Lives Matter or whatever back in 2020 saying, oh, no one, I remember literally remember people saying, I've not seen anything on some of my closest friends' social media about this. Their silence is really loud or whatever.
Yeah.
So saying that you should restory things and put your things on your story. And even that in itself, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. What I'm trying to say is,
It's an interesting
what are
one.
you supposed to put a story up for every single social movement that's going on at the moment?
Yeah.
Yourself individually, I don't know. Maybe you should, but I don't think you should, and I don't think that you can have scope to.
Here's an
I don't
interesting
know
one.
the answer between letting it happen and not picking everything
Being
up,
an
but
activist for it.
yeah,
Do you think as humans we should be aware of everything happening in the world? Do you think that's or do you think that's something that's changed since that we've had much easier access to media, more communication? We are more connected than ever. Um, do you think it's I don't know if it's a good thing. I can use that word good. It's too reductionist, but
mm,
do you think it's a healthy and morally correct to be educated about everything that's happening in the world?
I don't see the other than to yourself, which is it's very important. I don't see the harm in being
Hmm.
informed. Information is only Well, I was about to say information is only a good thing.
Yeah, I
And
think our research literally shows that the more, as humans, we're
well,
drawn to
yeah,
more negative, aren't we? We're literally
yeah.
drawn to more negative
Well,
news.
prudent timing.
Good word.
I mean, I think it comes as a surprise to no one that decades old research, but also current research finds that news consumption is correlated with or associated with adverse effects such as anxiety and stress.
Okay.
But Johnston and Davey back in the 90s found that negative news reported people exposed to negative news reported significantly more anxiety and sadness on those scores than those exposed to neutral or positive news, supporting the idea that daily news can directly influence our emotional states. So if we
There you
are
go.
in a place where we're seeing, let's be honest, the news is very negative at the moment,
Yeah.
it is inducing, again, just a basic correlational studies finding increased levels of anxiety and
Wow.
sadness.
And research backs that as well.
Yeah, empirical evidence, and then a 2022 study by McLaughlin and colleagues in America, over 1,000 adults was surveyed, and they found that the news addiction or keeping up with the news on a daily basis, those people who kept up with the news more so reported dramatically higher rates of anxiety, stress, fatigue, and even physical illness than those who consumed fewer
Wow.
fewer bits of information or
Yeah.
less news. Sorry,
So research is literally
um,
showing that the more news that we consume,
having an
it's
adverse
linked.
impact even on our physical health.
It's interesting what the news, this is something then to discuss, is what the news doesn't take into consideration is the moral obligation that we have to be educated about these things. Whilst
Mm,
physically and mentally, our health, which, doesn't take into consideration the moral obligation, will
mm,
decline the more news we consume.
yeah.
I don't think in life we can be so reductionist to always lead by health. Or can we? Say, if this isn't good for my health, I'm not going to do it. This is good for my health, I'm going to do it.
Well, it's again how altruistic you want to be about it, and
Yeah.
when I say altruistic, I mean putting
How,
other people
how
before
selfless, yeah.
yourself, selfless, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, because if you want to be compassionate and look after other people and all those things, when you're altruistic, that is kind of often at the detriment to your own self. Whether that's giving someone like on a very basic example, giving someone a lift somewhere, which means you have less time in your day to do your own chores and all those things.
Yeah.
But you're just being selfless and kind, to more of a what we're talking about here, consuming the news, being an avid activist on a daily basis to the point where you're getting unwell and mentally and physically unwell from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Is there
sure.
anyone in your mind who strikes the balance quite well? Or anything? I'm just trying to think about something that we're coming back to, is not knowing that balance of, well, not knowing the answer. I myself don't know the answer of, is there a good balance which one can strike of being educated, not ignorant, but also looking after your mental health first?
I know this is a really dumb thing to say, but I don't think we can all be Greta's.
Greta Thunberg's.
Her life
Yeah.
is pure. Her
Altruism.
every day is just activism.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Yeah.
If we all did that, we wouldn't have I don't know if this is really silly to say, but we wouldn't have an economy. We wouldn't be functioning.
We wouldn't as a human
We wouldn't
race,
all
no.
be able to, be going to
Yeah.
boats, going to summits, going to conferences every day.
Yeah. Fixing the world. Doesn't mean that's a bad thing that we have that though as well, but
Because
it
I
can't
was trying to
happen
answer
en masse.
I was going to answer your question with, well, Greta Thunberg is someone who's
Yeah.
doing it really well, but we can't all do that, I don't think.
Well, no, what I
Because
said by doing well is someone who, again, doing well is a very much a subjective thing. I don't know Greta Thunberg at all personally, so I can't speak for
I don't
this.
know. Well, I'm
Um,
pretty sound with her,
You're
to be
pretty
fair.
sound with her, to be fair.
Yeah.
Whilst I admire, love, and respect massively what she's doing, what's her mental health like? What's her physical health like?
Yeah.
I know that's not what's at the forefront of her mind, which is good for her. That's not what she's trying to go for, which I also completely respect as well. Is
Yeah.
there that is I think is where what you hold into your own personal preference. Are you okay with having, reduced physical and mental health,
Yeah.
as long as you're believing in the issues that you care about?
I think it's a lot of sitting comfortably, and if a lot of us asked ourselves, "Am I doing enough?" and we're truly honest with ourselves,
The answer is no.
we would be no. And
Of
myself,
course.
the first person to say that. An example: I'm a vegetarian. If I really broke it down, because I
Yeah,
sometimes let it out.
of course.
I'm very passionate, deeply
Yeah.
about why I'm a vegetarian and the moral implications about
Yeah.
meat consumption and all of those things.
Yeah.
Extremely passionate. Do I speak about it? No. Why? Because I don't want to disrupt the status quo. I don't want to offend
Yeah.
people. I don't want people to think that I'm challenging their morals. Well, actually, that's all on me and me being a people pleaser and all those things.
Yeah.
If I'm listening to myself, maybe I should be more. And that's just one example. Maybe I should be doing more on speaking on the genocide that's going on, whatever it is, because I think if we actually were to ask ourselves, the general public, are we doing enough
The
to
answer is no.
support other people that aren't
Yeah.
ourselves? Probably not.
Even just having
And
thought
I
about
personally think that as human beings, because some people might be like, well, we don't need to. I don't fully endorse or subscribe to every part of an individualistic culture. I think we should be more collectivistic. I think we are pack humans. We work well together. We work well as a community. Here's the evolutionary coming back into it, but here's the evolutionary psychology coming back into it. But we look after each other, and we thrive when we look after our communities.
Completely agree.
So therefore, I don't want to just look after myself and make sure I'm fine. I know I need to do that because if I can't look after myself, I can't look after other people. But at the same time, I should be looking after other people. Personally, I think that, and therefore, I should be acting on the news, and I should be doing what I can. And if I'm honest, I'm not doing enough. I know I'm not.
Yeah. I was literally just about to say that point was, I know I was just saying, is your mental health and your physical health good enough? Or where do you hold that instead compared to how much you do for your community? Inherently is by doing more for your community, speaking about the issues that you actually want to do, even though on the surface your mental health or physical health might be reduced, because you're doing more for your community and you're speaking about issues that you care about as a collective. Do you become better? Does it become a healthier community? Because you're tapping into
that's the hope, but
that's the hope. But is that what we've lost in this society where we're becoming more individualistic than ever? We're more separated. We're more disconnected because we're all focused on the self, the body, the mind, what we are, or who we are, instead of the collective as a human race, and looking after that as well.
Mm.
And has holding individualistic properties and tendencies, looking after the self, actually what's led to the breakdown in community and these fascist movements, or these whatever movements it might be, is that's what's actually led to that. It's about people putting themselves first instead of putting the greater good, like the oceans or the environment, or just people having space to live, whatever it is.
The greater good.
The greater good. No, but yeah.
You want to be a big cop in a small village?
The
So
greater
down the model
good.
village then. Any luck catching them swans then? Sorry, you're being very serious, and I
No,
was just when you said the
yeah,
greater
having
good,
a little
it
bit of a giggle.
reminded me of Hot Fuzz.
I think, yeah, the more, I don't know the answer, but yeah, is being focused more on the greater good in the community actually what's going to lead to good change? Is by speaking out about
well,
issues you care about more what's going to lead to better change?
if we all just sat back and did nothing,
Yeah,
more Donald Trumps would be.
more power, exactly
Yeah,
that.
and unfortunately, we, for whatever reason,
Yeah,
the liberals or the left haven't been able to band together enough, or I don't know, the fascists are too powerful at the moment, or
more
win
loudly
the
spoken.
opposition aren't powerful enough.
Yeah,
That yeah, they are rising, and even in the UK, Reform are on the rise more than ever and getting more votes than ever. So, but we can't lose hope or be complacent to that, and more we could
yeah.
do more.
It's weird when the left seem to speak about their issues and their cares. They seem to there seems to be these labels floating around like woke or whatever, but when the right is speaking loudly about what they care about, it
Don't get
seems
me
to be
started on the word woke.
it seems to be labeled as, people knowing what they want, or seem to be like assertive and dominant, when it's quite an interesting dynamic.
It's it's just the most unintelligent, like someone who's the most powerful man in the world, even Donald Trump, to our own MPs, Nadine, well, not anymore, fortunately, but like Nadine Dorries or whoever,
Yeah,
using this word woke as an insult, as if the word being awake is a bad thing. The antonym of woke is asleep. What? So you want to be asleep? You want to be dumb and
actually a really good point.
uneducated? It's literally the most idiotic, just simplistic, duh thing. What are you saying? It's just so stupid. And also, leading on from what you're saying, the the right wing leaning people saying, "Oh, the left woke snowflakes," the other word snowflakes,
Yeah,
all while getting so pressed about what we're saying, so pressed about language, so pressed about
yeah.
it's just the irony
I've never
is
seen,
is mad.
whilst I'm a meat eater as well, I have never seen a collective of people be more pressed when the idea of not eating as much meat is
Yeah,
presented. It's crazy.
it gets so upset because
Yeah,
fundamentally it
it's
challenges the
crazy.
traditions and all of those things which
Yeah,
they want to hold on to. The word conservative is you're conserving things.
yeah,
um but yeah, what I this is a bit of a tangent, but I saw through TikTok, in all transparency, but it was a clip from BBC uh Good Morning or whatever, I can't remember the name of the
yeah,
program, where two MPs, one from Labour, one from Reform, were
yeah.
debating whether burqas should be legal in the UK. And for me, I was like, why is this even allowed
Conversation.
to be debated?
Yeah,
I'm not religious myself. I personally don't want to subscribe to a religion, and I have my own thoughts on that. But I also believe people should have religious freedom to
did you
express their
hear what
religion.
the opinions were of why it was
Yeah,
even being
this
floated?
I don't want to know her name, and I should know her name, and that's ignorance on my part. But this dumb Reform MP saying women are being oppressed, and that women don't want to be wearing burqas, and that they don't want these things, all the while has literally never had a conversation with a single woman of Islamic faith. And
Yeah,
this the Labour MP, I think she's the MP the Bradford area, maybe. I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
yeah.
She was like, "Have you ever spoken to a woman, an Islamic woman?" She's like, "They don't want to speak to me." It's
I
like,
wonder why.
what? What are you
Yeah,
saying? They don't
I
want to
wonder
speak to
why.
you? How are you here spouting this absolute vile nonsense
Yeah,
about someone's religious freedom when you haven't even spoken to a single person from that religion?
yeah,
And the point I raised more so is the fact that the BBC allow that to even be it allows the general public to think that that's something that's okay to debate someone's religious freedom in the first
Yeah.
place. I don't know. Maybe I am too let's call it woke about it. But I just think, why are you even entertaining that conversation in the first place? Because it just it opens up conversations in the general public that we can debate someone's rights like that.
It clearly stems from an issue of control as well. Again, relating to the idea of the individual thinking that they have a right to stop someone else from doing that, instead of it just being a collective of
Mm,
people acting in everyone's best interest. This person is saying, this Reform MP is saying, myself as an individual has more control over this other person, thus my opinion matters more. That's basically what that is.
mm,
Instead of, yeah, just letting people do what they want.
yeah, it's mad. And yeah, don't get me started on J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
But no, I think let's getting back to the news itself. I think
Yeah,
there's obviously a lot of adversities that come with being
of
heavily
course.
involved with the news. I think it's also important to say we know,
There are
and
some
as
good
well as there
things.
is research, but we do
Yeah,
know that, as we're already alluding to, being an informed person,
yeah,
knowing what's going on enables you to be a steward of your community. It gives
yeah.
you that sort of, yeah, civic motivation to look after the people around you, to look after
Civic
those.
meaning,
Civic is sort of your connection to your community, but
yeah,
so you have like a civic duty. The civic duty is your duty to your local community and the
yeah,
people around you and your local environment.
yeah,
So yes, in consuming the news, it allows you to be informed and also empowered.
yeah,
Yeah, Korean study, active engagement in news portals, commenting, sharing. This is online. Online civic discussions predicted offline civic engagement and collective efficacy in activism,
yeah,
um, showing that online news forums can act as community catalysts, driving real civic participation and real civic change and
yeah,
positive movements for the better of the local community.
yeah,
So, yes, it comes with adversities of, maybe doing too much and feeling too much and feeling stressed, but it does also, if you can find that balance, promote that sort of the social change, because the community is what leads the change. It's why we have a vote. It's why our voice is important. And if you lose hope that your voice is important, then it's kind of, yeah.
yeah. I think it's just now in these bigger cities than these smaller communities, it's that voice has become a lot louder. When, like, even now when I'm saying the word community,
Mm,
my mind's drawn to the image of a small town where
yeah.
people know everyone and people, people listen to people's voices as well. But
Mm,
inherently through these smaller communities as well is where, people aren't almost listened to, or where if you're an outlier, you aren't listened to as well.
mm.
Um,
That is a very good point, and makes me think about sort of my experience having grown up in the countryside to then moving to London. I just I think, and it's also why this is getting away from the news, but if there's less of that collective community feeling,
yeah,
you feel less engaged with and less then emotionally
that's wanting
available
to
to. And in a city like this, that you don't have the good
London.
morning, how are you? And that
No,
although those small little things make you feel like you're part of a community and you know your neighbor and all of those things. And
got to care.
if you're in a anonymous city where you don't know anyone and everyone is just a stranger to you, you have that
People
less of
become
that
more
motivation.
individualistic,
Oh
self-serving. You
yeah,
don't want to serve the bigger city or the
yeah,
community because there isn't, or there doesn't feel like there's one. I think you have these subsections within cities
yeah.
where people still want to get involved in the local council, the local thing here and there, but
Which, sorry, carry on.
yeah, as we keep on growing, it's more and more difficult to get that community feeling where you want to become empowered and where you want to empower your local community and care about these issues.
Yeah, which is why I think I'm aware that a lot of people would see this to be like a Black Mirror thing,
Yeah,
but why social media, while it gets a bad rep, is so helpful and beneficial in this way,
yeah,
because it's allowing us to connect and inform and
yeah, it's true.
give share news with one another and feel connected. I don't live in America. I've never lived in America,
No,
but I feel in alliance with people in America,
Mm.
or people who are being deported, because I'm feeling some sort of community online with these people.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that might sound a bit parasocial and weird, but I have that connection that way. Or I'm seeing things, some of my friends that I'm connected with through run clubs, but I'm now connected with them on social media because I don't get to see them every day, if at all ever anymore, because I
Yeah.
don't go to that run club or whatever. I'm seeing their movements for Palestine and what they're doing, and I feel
Yeah.
connected in that way through social media. And social media, while it gets a bad rep, allows us to, again, all about the balance, but allows us to
It's what
stay
allowed
up
me
to
to
date
find
with what's
out.
going on and feel part of that news community and that
Yeah.
information community. So then we then feel responsibility for those people around
It's
us.
what allowed me to find out more about the March for Clean Water, was through the people I follow, through that community online.
Mm,
I found out about it and was very fortunate enough to be able to partake in person from
yeah,
it. But it's because of the online communities that we can now build and place ourselves in. We can find out and care more about these issues, which we wouldn't previously have been able to care about
yeah, for
because
sure.
we weren't informed about them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That does link in, though, to the idea of almost burnout through activism.
Mm.
What was it called? It's
Compassion fatigue.
I think that's it. Is it compassion fatigue?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's completely. I mean, it's everything that we've been speaking about, but the compassion fatigue, is and more media fatigue, but more so compassion fatigue is being compassionate for everyone and everything, and that
Yeah.
that doesn't only relate to the news, but is a compassion fatigue is a psychological experience, phenomenon that we experience in many domains. The caring person or the therapist who doesn't look after themselves or whatever. Compassion fatigue is a very real thing, and if you're constantly giving and emoting and being empathetic for other people
Yeah.
and looking after other people, you're gonna burn yourself out, and you
Yeah.
must look after yourself before or as well as looking after other people,
Yeah.
whether, like I say, that's in person being the caring friend or whether it's being the activist based on what the news is telling you.
Yeah.
Compassion fatigue is a very real thing and is very much associated with news consumption and, yeah, taking in too much news and taking in too much information about all of the atrocities going on in the world.
Yeah.
You just burn yourself out and you can't feel that much for that many people.
No.
And I have seen arguments, again, something I think you were slightly going to when you asked me the question about should we know everything. We've never we would never evolved to have this much information and to know this much. We know our local tribe, our local community. We weren't knowing what was going on in the tribe over there or the tribe over here. So
Yeah.
we don't have the skill set or even the neurobiological wiring to be able to feel that much for that many millions of people. It's not
Yeah.
something we are even hardwired to do.
No.
So
It's
compassion
not
fatigue is a
natural.
very real thing. We do fatigue and burn out because of consuming this much news about this many people.
Same
It's
as
not to say that we shouldn't and we should shut ourselves off from the information, but it's
mm,
just an explanation as to how and why we get to this place of feeling exhausted from all the news because we're not, arguably, not supposed to know all of that from an evolutionary perspective. We didn't have access to all that information.
no. Completely agree. Whether it means it's right or not is different, but as a evolutionary perspective, it's
Mm,
not something that's within us.
no,
So if we're going from that angle,
yeah,
it's completely fine that we don't know everything or we shouldn't know everything as well.
yeah, and it just it does make sense as to why it then is so sort of jarring, day after day, to be like, oh, seeing this now,
Well, it
seeing
has
this
really
now.
negative effects on your health as
Yeah.
well. It's not surprising that it will negatively affect you or that
Yeah.
it drains your mind
Yeah.
or whatnot.
Um,
It's the same as activist purpose, isn't it?
yeah.
It's whilst it's good for your behaviors, it's tough on your health. Um, Activist purpose is basically positively linked to healthy behaviors like exercise and nutrition. Um, Basically, researchers investigated how activist purpose, which is seeing social change as a core life direction, relates to both physical and mental health outcomes. Um, so as I just said, whilst it's good for your behaviors, it's tough on your health.
Hmm.
Activists often are found to maintain their health to support their cause, but are also associated with lower self-rated health, greater role limitations in daily life,
Mm.
increase in physical pain, and worse social functioning.
Mm.
So there are,
So it's like having a purpose, because we all have purpose in life, but when your purpose is being an activist
yeah,
or heavily linked with being an activist.
the research shows that you will have adverse effects on you as well. that you have adverse effects on your social functioning, your physical pain.
Yeah.
It's where you personally draw that line, I think, with
Mm.
what you're okay and what you're not okay with as well.
Yeah.
And different people have different thresholds, as we see Greta Thunberg, very much a much higher threshold for taking that on and caring about that,
Yeah.
whereas other people who don't listen to any of it probably have a much lower threshold for it.
Yeah. I think I could, yeah, in my purpose for life, I think I could have an extra sprinkle of being an activism in there. And a little bit of spice.
Well, that's up to you if you want to do
Well,
that.
I think so.
That's
Like I
everyone's
said
personal
before,
discretion.
I think if we were all to ask ourselves, I could be doing more and I should be doing more.
Yeah.
I don't think I could be Greta about it, but I could be, speaking to my values and
Yeah.
my beliefs more so. And I don't want my sole purpose to be an activist. I think that's fair to say, but I've not even begun yet, so I can't be someone who is seeing these negative health outcomes and all these things because I'm
Yeah.
not there. Um,
Yeah, I think it also something that we've not really touched on, which we can a little bit, is how much by doing charity work and doing work for others and speaking up actually can bring you a lot of joy as well.
yeah,
You know,
100%.
from speaking up and seeing the impact that your word and that your work on other people and for a greater good can actually have,
Mm,
that brings so much joy for you as well. And so whilst it can be, whilst you can experience high levels of burnout or whatnot, seeing that collectively coming together for an issue, seeing the issue or the needle move and seeing the outcome as well from that issue is a wonderful thing and will bring a lot of collective joy
well,
because that's how
exactly.
everything changes.
And I think that heavily leads back to the purpose, right?
Yeah.
As human beings, we want to, like this, for example, just stay with me on this example,
Mm.
but we're making this podcast.
Yeah.
We both said we feel like we have a purpose
Yeah.
in producing this. We're producing something and we're seeing an outcome from doing it, which
Yeah.
is creativity, all of these things. It's the same as human beings. We want a purpose and we both feel like we have a purpose, so we feel so fulfilled in that. If you're an activist, that's kind of a purpose in that. So you're getting joy from seeing your hard work and you're speaking out. When policies change, when people have more rights, when things, atrocities cease to exist, you feel satisfaction from that. That's your work that's had a result.
Yeah.
And again, it's like the productivity. When you put in work and have a result from a basic example, you go to the gym, you see your muscles. Sorry, it's such a stupid example. You
No,
go to
but
the
it's a
sea,
very reductionist, but it's fine.
you
Yeah.
go to the gym, you see your muscles grow.
Mm.
That's satisfying. When you go and speak up for people and you do this hard work
Yeah.
on a much more important level,
Yeah.
that's so satisfying, and you have a purpose in that. You're creating in a way, and
Yeah.
you're producing something in a way that, yeah, is much bigger than yourself, so arguably is a lot more fulfilling.
The research that I was literally just talking about,
Mm,
it showed that engaging in activism offers psychological resilience. So a feeling of meaning and belonging can actually buffer stress as well.
exactly.
So from committing to something larger,
Mm,
that psychological resilience can be increased. So
yeah.
it has a lot of benefits from being more activist.
But I think you've got to be intentional with that, and knowing while that resilience can be increased, you've got to look out for yourself.
Yeah, the work is or can be very emotionally and physically challenging and draining as well. Confrontation, grief, burnout, all these things are very much associated with it.
Mm,
I know for my own case, when Trump was reinstated, he made some pretty poor decisions regarding the climate. It's difficult to not, especially if it's your work or you care about these issues and you're doing a lot of activism work to, reduce the sea's temperatures or whatnot, or stop, bottom trawling, and then this massive marine protected area is opened up. It's difficult to not feel this massive wave of all that work has just been ridden over because this, almost tyrant is in power now.
mm,
It's difficult to not have those feelings of burnout or
yeah.
stress or grief, even feeling like you've lost something.
So, what are some things we always like to have?
Some takeaways. What
Takeaways.
can you do?
What do we do? What can you
What do
do?
we do? My main thing is setting boundaries with what I'm personally okay with and what I'm not. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, just a very easy one is the BBC app. I don't have notifications on
Mm-hmm.
as I want to choose when I consume media. Now it's up to me to be not ignorant, to not just checking the news, ever. I want to still be informed and educated, but that'll be under my own sort of, choosing.
Yeah.
So it's setting a boundary of how I consume media
Yeah.
or how I consume the news.
Fair enough. And knowing for you, being intentional with that, where your limits are and what, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a really important one. For me, something else I think on top of that, and I use this as an example again, like I did with compassion fatigue, but if you're a therapist or a
Yeah.
psychologist, you have a supervisor. Every psychologist has supervision with someone else who they offload to, reflect to, think
Yeah.
about their practice, and it's there to reduce those things like compassion fatigue and burnout and whatnot. I
Yeah.
think just like that with any other support, speak about it
Yeah.
as that's literally the foundation of this podcast. But if you have a collective of you who are doing the same thing, I think speaking internally with that collective is helpful. um and you can reflect and say, this is I'm feeling, I'm struggling here, this is getting to me here. Just speaking is so beneficial.
Yeah.
But I also think it would be helpful to speak about it neutrally with someone who isn't within that collective,
Mm.
just to offload, get some impartial advice, someone
Yeah.
who you trust and are compassionate with, and they're not someone who's going to judge your feelings or tell you X, Y, and Z, but
Yeah.
someone who also you can get a bit of resolve from, who is slightly impartial and allows you to just
Yeah.
not have that sort of reinforced echo chamber of, yeah, it's so bad, da da da, because then that will probably just make you feel even worse and remind you of how bad it is. You kind of need someone to sort of diffuse you in a way, I think, and allow you to not let go of it and completely forget it, but just, yeah, diffuse and allow space for other conversations, other reflections. And
It's a great point. I think news in itself has gotten to a point where there's a lot of emotion with the
mm,
news. I mean, it's very difficult to not become emotional about the news, but inherently itself, news is something that is just a factual thing that should be stated. Now, exactly what you're talking about there with echo chambers, as we've become more connected, there have been so many more echo chambers for people to become more radicalized or feel more about what they actually care about. And then within that group, take more action, for instance. But being conscious about what groups you're in or what news sources that you're taking in as well,
mm,
I think is something that we need to be quite serious about. Making sure that your news sources are trusted and unbiased, and that you're getting the facts so that you can curate your own narrative is very important, because through these radicalized groups, we get these Andrew Tates, these Trump supporters who end up taking action and are very, very loud, and that's how this unfortunate change that we're seeing is happening.
mm.
So I think it's an important. I think we all have a moral obligation to try and curate as unbiased news sources as we possibly can
Yeah,
for the greater good.
for the greater good. Something else I think I find helpful, and it leads back to the hope, because we all need hope.
We do.
Otherwise, what are we
What do we
doing
have?
here?
What are you doing?
Is, yes, consume news, and yes, we should do or want to or whatever. It's important to stay informed, but why not, in the sake of balance, as we always say, it's
Yep.
all about balance. If you're going to consume the news, if I'm going to consume the news, allow myself to find a good news. There's like Instagram pages, there's TikTok pages,
Yeah.
there's even like credible news sources that are good news of the day, or
Yeah.
here's the positive. There's climate change outlets that have, here's the positive things that have happened for the climate every single
Positive
day or
news
every
from the
single
blue.
week.
Yeah.
Um, I think for the sake of balance and remaining hopeful, yes, consume the news, because it's important to know what's going on in Palestine and everywhere and what we're seeing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, allow yourself and give yourself the pleasure of seeing the good news in the world. And for me, that's one of the biggest ones, because it allows you to sort of see the joy and see the beauty in the world and not become completely jaded and
Yeah.
angry and upset, because it's so easy to do that. And that's basically what this comes back to. And like you said at the beginning, there is so much good happening.
That's a
Let's
great point.
let's not see the world to be completely doomed, because if we did, then we don't have the hope. What good can we see, and what good news is there? And I do really find that lovely. And I can't remember which which journalist it is, but she's on Greg James, or used to be on Greg James's Radio 1 show,
Yeah.
um, and had a feature. I'm pretty sure. I hope I'm not misremembering, but anyway, had a feature on good news only, and here's the good news that we can look at. And it's just lovely to do that, because why not? Like you say, and what we said at the beginning, news by the nature of it is inherently can often be negative, because unfortunately things that are going
Yeah.
on are, and the important pertinent things that we need to act on are negative. But it's not to say we should ignore or not give focus
Give
to
credence to the good
the
news.
hopeful things and the
Oh, that
beautiful
alarm,
things.
yeah, and being intentional with making sure to give room for that,
Yeah,
because then it'll probably allow us to be, or have more capacity to, accept the more negative news as
yeah.
well.
And also, if we're then going into the activism side of it, it allows us to be more sustainable with that activism, and
Because it's for a good cause and that there
yeah,
is hope.
and you are seeing positive changes or knowing that change is happening. Because if you want to be an activist, but you can't, yeah, that the hope has to come with activism.
It does.
Or sorry, yeah,
It needs to have a hand in, whilst there's bad, you also know there's hope because that's what you're striving for, is a better outcome.
yeah,
And by seeing tangible change, that gives you the evidence to know that what you're doing works. There's the Blue Marine Foundation, the marine conservation charity based in London.
yeah.
They have a weekly or monthly thing. It's positive news from the blue, and they always just give updates about a certain species or a certain area of the
Mhm,
oceans that is becoming more abundant or thriving, whatever it is.
mhm,
And that sort of stuff, whilst you can balance with this politician said this or this has happened here, there's been more fishing than ever. Giving the hope will allow more capacity for more people to care about the issue
mhm.
because they know that it can be fixed.
Yeah,
I like what you said there. That's pretty good.
yeah. Thank you. I agree.
Speaking of positive news,
Yeah,
do you have a mood boost for us, Marcus?
I do have a mood boost.
He didn't tell me before this, so I have no idea what his mood boost is.
Can you guess? It's probably because it's you.
Is it?
It's about you.
Oh, great.
Uh,
Thanks a lot.
my mood boost is Charlie and his little iPad.
This is a big iPad. What are you saying? This is
Um,
a regular iPad large.
so I think we've already mentioned this, but yeah, we've been using the iPad just to make
Yeah,
sure that we are, as we've always wanted to do. One of our pillars is evolution through evidence, and making sure that the evidence is at the forefront of what we're doing, and therefore
of
having
course.
just physical information in front of us could be helpful as a bit of an anchor when we're discussing things. And I have an iPad, bought one ages ago. Part of my PhD was using an iPad. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And you kind of very much got iPad FOMO after I did a recording with it. You're like,
It
I
just
need
looked
one.
so much easier to be able to curate notes. I was
Yeah.
there writing before an episode with hand, and it just took so
And
long.
it was like seeing a kid being like, I want that toy. And it was just funny and sweet. And so then
Yeah,
we'd been scouring Facebook Marketplace and Gumtree for like a few weeks trying to find one, and then you've eventually found your iPad, and it's just an example of how our mood boosts aren't always these profound little things, but just
secondhand on Facebook.
seeing you and your little iPad is just
My little iPad.
it's quite cool, quite endearing.
I've moved from paper. Sorry, journal
Yeah.
upstairs. It's left there alone.
So yeah, you getting your iPad yesterday was a exciting little moment, and your little
Little
iPad case
adventure.
and the matching cases for the pod. Yeah, it's that's my mood
They're actually our
boost.
research pads. We're going to call them
Yeah, our intellectual
our intellectual pads,
pads.
our intellectual digitized notebooks.
Yes. What about you?
It's also about me. Sorry, Marcus.
That's okay.
So I have never seen a Coke can with my name on it. And the office brought in a bunch of Coke cans. I have my name called from afar. Charlie, come over here. What? I run over. There is George standing with a Coke can with my name on it. I have never seen one before.
Nice.
I was elated. I didn't
Nice.
drink it. Someone else threatened to drink it. I said no.
Have you kept it?
I think it's in the fridge still. I will keep it
Okay.
though.
Yeah, keep it.
I will definitely keep it.
Yeah,
It's
I
quite
have
cool.
a not a rare name, but it's not a common name.
Marcus.
Marcus.
It's not the most common, is it?
I was never on those key rings in
You're
the
not.
shops. Never.
Mm,
It was always Mark, which
yeah.
I am not a Mark.
Charles is more common than Charlie.
So I just never really expected to have a Coke can with my name on. But then on
Yeah.
my 17th birthday of all days, in Tamworth, no, Tavistock, Devon.
Havistock.
Yeah, 17th birthday in Devon with my
Unreal.
friends. 17 shots in 17 minutes. That
Oh,
occasion.
that one, yeah.
We were at the Tesco getting some supplies and some food, and there it was, right there, Marcus Diet Coke bottle.
Did you drink it?
I did. I don't have the bottle anymore.
Rip.
Rip.
It's probably a good thing.
But yeah, so I can share that joy, that little moment of joy.
It's good to share our moments of joy.
from 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Oof, Jesus, I'm old.
Sure, you are.
Well, your 17th birthday was like last week, wasn't it?
It was 2 weeks ago. It was indeed.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely mood boost.
Yeah, nice
Coke
little
can
mood boost.
and the iPad, or the
iPad.
intellectual pad,
Intellectual
digitized
documentation, digitized pad.
device.
Very rude of me. Sorry for
You're
yawning.
yawning on
I
a
couldn't
podcast.
sleep at all last night. I'm
This
really
guy,
sorry.
I'm
I'm
really
just
sorry.
relaxed. I'm having a nice time.
This guy's yawning. He's all tired.
Relax.
We're boring him, guys.
No, we're
We're
not.
boring
We're
him.
not. We're not. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for a lovely
Thank
episode.
you very much for the episode. That was an interesting one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous about it.
Me
Just
too.
speaking so heavily on. I just realised anyway. Speaking so heavily on current affairs and things going on, because I do feel like, I guess, being transparent, that I could be doing more, and often I don't know enough. For example, speaking about 2 MPs, and I couldn't even remember either of their names. But that's me being a critic to myself, and actually my thoughts and opinions are
just
important.
valid. Yeah.
And I am an educated person. I just wanted to speak about the impact of the news, and it's very topical at the moment, and how we can maybe look after ourselves while everything's going on.
I think it's very easy to feel uneducated in this sort of day and age now, where there's so much to know about. So I think I was also a little bit nervous just to come on and sound uneducated and ignorant to issues like that. But as long as within my own sort of realm I'm doing enough, or I feel like I am, and I'm looking after people I care about, I feel like that's what matters.
You're doing great, sweetie.
You're doing great. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let us know what you thought.
Please. No.
Please.
If you don't, then that's a you problem.
It's also
and don't listen again.
You issue. Don't tune in if you didn't enjoy it.
But you did enjoy it.
You know you did. Is your mood boosted?
If you don't like anything we said, let us know in the comments, because we'd love to hear about it. And
yes, comment.
Get into a debate with you about it. Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
wonderful.
Thank you very much for a lovely episode.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it off if you want to do some ASMR.
Do some ASMR.
About the news.
The chase is the news.